please welcome Stephen Wish, Chair of AJC's Board of Trustees, and Barak Rabinowitz, Managing Partner of F2 Venture Capital.
Good afternoon. When AJC started to plan for this year's Global Forum, we knew we had to highlight Israel's thriving innovation scene. Israel's tech sector has been the driving force behind its economic growth, its military edge, and its many contributions to the fields of medicine, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, medicine, agriculture, and much more. The remarkable ingenuity and entrepreneurial spirit of Israeli innovators have propelled the nation to the forefront of technological advancements, revolutionizing industries and improving countless lives. And as the planning advanced, I knew exactly the right person to call, my dear friend Barak Rabinowitz and his daughter Naya. I hired Barak after I left Goldman Sachs in 2001. I helped run an organization called 9/11 United Services Group, which helped the victims of 9/11, and I hired Barak as an analyst for Morgan Stanley. He was a great analyst. I wrote him a recommendation to Harvard Business School. He got in, by the way. And then after Harvard Business School, he made Aliyah, and he has had a stellar career since, building technology companies and starting one of the leading venture capital funds in Israel called F2 Capital. And I'm very proud to say that AJC is an investor, a very happy investor in F2 Capital. And he has a wonderful wife and 3 beautiful children. Here's one of them, Naya, today, as you can see. And I spent most of my life, there she is. I spent a good portion of my life mentoring Barak, and now it's come full circle, and Barak is now mentoring me, and now Naya as well.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's great to be here on the Global Forum stage. You all know Israel as the startup nation, and our reputation is well earned. As an immigrant tech entrepreneur and investor and new dad, hailing all the way from Youngstown, Ohio, I've witnessed the Israeli tech revolution firsthand over the last 20 years. I'm very proud that my firm, F2, invests in young Israelis who are pushing the boundaries of what's possible, providing them with the guidance, network, and capital to turn their dreams into reality.
Over the next couple of days, we will have the privilege of hearing from several brilliant Israelis who are changing the world. These faces of Israeli innovation will inspire us with their groundbreaking ideas, visionary leadership, and unwavering commitment to a positive impact here in Israel and around the world. From dramatic advancements in space technology to innovative solutions driving social impact, each speaker will provide invaluable insights into Israel's thriving innovation ecosystem.
These are my countrymen and women, but also my colleagues and friends. They're fueling the engine of Israeli innovation. In Israel, innovation runs deep within the cultural fabric. It's what brought me here and permeates our society. I hope the stories you'll hear today and throughout Global Forum help illuminate the transformative power of Israeli resourcefulness, taking you into the hearts and minds of Startup Nation.
75 years ago, a miracle happened. Israel was reborn. And decades later, Israel continues to defy the odds, making the impossible possible.
Please join us in welcoming our first face of Israeli innovation, Professor Ran Ginosar. High five. Yes.
Hi. So I was supposed to talk yesterday, and schedule got mixed up. So he told me, why don't you come again today? And the question is, why would I make all the way from Haifa to here a second time just to talk a few minutes? So here it goes. 120 years ago, On April 19, 1903, the people of Kishinev performed or carried out a massacre of the Jews in that town. My grandfather was one of the survivors, came to Israel and helped build the country. 3 years later, in 1906, the AJC was founded in response to these events. And I decided I need to come again today to show admiration and support the work you're doing around the world helps me as an Israeli, as a Jew. My name is Ran Ginosar. I was born and raised in Israel. I served in the Israel Defense Forces, and I fought in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. I then studied computer engineering at the Technion in Haifa, in Israel, and got my PhD from Princeton University in the United States. I then returned to Israel in 1983 and joined the Technion faculty and been there ever since. As President Kennedy said in the early 60s, space is hard. Spacecraft need to survive in space many years in spite of damaging cosmic radiation and extreme temperatures and mechanical stress and lack of air. Since the 1990s, I have researched how to make computers and computer chips survive in a harsh environment of space. By the year 2000, Israel had already launched several surveillance satellites and one telecom satellite. Going to space constitutes a key strategic asset for Israel. Being able to provide visual intelligence of the entire region and being able to communicate everywhere is extremely important. The Israel space industry developed everything from scratch with lots of creative innovation. And the good results serve not only Israel. Over the years, complete satellites were and still are exported globally to allied nations. Some 20 years ago, I founded a company, Ramon Space, at the request of the Israel Ministry of Defense. We proudly named the company in memory of the late Colonel Ilan Ramon, the first Israeli astronaut who died on the Columbia Space Shuttle. The company, Ramon Space, is commissioned to enhance Israel's strategic independence in space. What we do is has a high reputation and is highly regarded all around the world. Our computer flew for 3.5 years all the way to a remote asteroid on a Japanese science spacecraft. For 7 years now, our computer has been orbiting Mars continually and taking color picture of the Martian surface on a European mission. Presently, our computers fly on Nasser, constellation of 8 satellites that research hurricanes and typhoons. And more recently, our computers help make the Israeli lunar lander Bereshit. So far, our computers worked 250,000 days in space with 0 failures. We continue to make ever more powerful computers and data centers for space, for the moon, for future human space flights, and for strategic defense satellites. I'm excited to see the young generation in Israel get inspired and highly motivated by space. Young people participate in national and international space competitions, and they are motivated to go study the relevant sciences and engineering. We foresee great future to Israel space, science, and industry. Will continue to lead while collaborating with the rest of the world. As we say, השמיים אינם הגבול. The sky is not the limit. Thank you.
%91 of U.S. adults
say that anti-Semitism
is a problem for everyone.
It affects society as a whole.
Anti-Semitism is not a Jewish problem, it's sort of a people problem.
Fighting anti-Semitism is important to me because fighting that type of hate is fighting all hate.
If it happens to one of us, it happens to all of us.
An awareness of a problem starts the process of change.
It has to come from the individual, the want to learn, the want to better understand the people around you.
Hard conversations are good. We can course correct.
What begins with anti-Semitism never actually ends with anti-Semitism.
If we don't speak out, we are putting ourselves in danger.
We're only as strong as the people who stand with us.
My name is Bree.
My name is Curtis.
My name is Daniel.
My name is Father Nicholas.
And I'm taking a stand against anti-Semitism. Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Please welcome AJC President Michael Tichnor.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're enjoying this global forum as much as I am. It's been absolutely fantastic. It is my distinct honor to introduce this next special Global Forum segment. For those of you who have attended past Global Forums, you know that AJC has several meaningful awards that we bestow on exemplary individuals. This year, as we sought to honor a distinguished group of individuals who are dedicating themselves to fighting anti-Semitism, there were several AJC awards we could have selected, but we felt that this moment called for something special, and our CEO, Ted Deutsch, knew exactly what that should be. For there is one individual who stands in a category of his own when it comes to protecting and advancing the well-being of the Jewish people, someone who has dedicated his life to this mission, and that person is from our very own AJC family, David Harris. David served as AJC CEO for 32 years and is the most decorated American Jewish leader in history. The child of parents who survived Nazism and communism, David has dedicated his life to service to the Jewish people. Among his many efforts, David developed AJC into the leading global Jewish advocacy organization, with the architecture and staff that has allowed the agency to become the preeminent organization countering Jew hatred worldwide. In the early 2000s, under David's leadership, AJC was the first to sound the alarm on the resurgence of anti-Semitism on European soil. David spent decades working with government officials, including several of this evening's honorees, to ensure that they knew that fighting anti-Semitism is not the responsibility of Jews alone, but that governments had to become the first line of defense. And this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to everything that David has done for the Jewish people. David, you have the gratitude of generations of Jews, and your skilled leadership and advocacy will earn the gratitude of generations of Jews yet to come. I must also mention that your wonderful wife, Julieta, or Juju, another member of the AJC family, is here with us this afternoon and has been a partner and an inspiration alongside you throughout your distinguished career. It's wonderful to see you, Juju. David, it is our distinct privilege and pleasure this afternoon to present the first ever AJC David Harris Awards. Please join me in welcoming and honoring my good friend, our good friend, David Harris, to the stage.
Liot am chofshi be'artzenu, Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. Those words come from where? From Hatikva, to be a free people in our own land, the land of Jerusalem and Zion. On the 75th anniversary of the rebirth of the State of Israel, Mazal Tov Israel, and may I suggest that those of you who wish join me together in saying a Shechechiyonu for the fact that at this moment in Jewish history, we stand together here on the soil of Israel. For 1,878 years, 75 generations of your forefathers and mothers and mine prayed, yearned, ached to see a reborn Israel. We are the 76th generation. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shechechiyonu v'kiyimonu v'higiyonu lazman hazeh. Thank you, Sovereign of the universe, for sustaining us, enabling us to live to this precious day, and may I add, sharing it biyachad, together. Thank you, Michael Tichnor, my longtime friend, for what you said and for the friendship, and the partnership, and the trust that it bespeaks. Thank you, Ted Deutsch, my worthy successor, for participating in this new award. I wish you only mazal. Good luck, Ted. We all depend on you. I want to give a special shout out to two superstars of the AJC Dream Team, Bel Yoeli and Daniel Silver. Not just for being the backbone of organizing this amazing global forum, but for something else that will remain a secret between them and me. And I want to thank you, AJC, my spiritually enriching secular synagogue for 43 years, my oasis of reason, of integrity, of independence, of courage for 43 years. My second family, though my wife would sometimes complain, my first family for 43 years. My home, my very special, precious, unique, treasured home, where I was allowed to live my ideals, my values, my beliefs, my aspirations together with you. So this is not just another occasion, it's a very special moment for me that I feel honored to share with you. And that brings me to the purpose of this session. And here I have both bad news and good news. And that won't be followed by a bad news, good news joke, though there are many. The bad news is that we have to create this award as an expression of our determination to fight rising anti-Semitism. We came so close, we thought, didn't we? To finding that Pfizer vaccine, if you will, that would finally, if not put to an end, then completely marginalize that age-old pathology of anti-Semitism. And that Pfizer vaccine, we thought, was liberal, pluralistic, authentic democracy. Somehow we wanted to believe, and we even had good reason to believe, we thought, that after Belzec and Buchenwald and Babi Yar and Birkenau, the culmination of thousands of years of anti-Semitism, that maybe the world had come to its senses, that maybe this anti-Semitism had gone too far in the inferno that destroyed 1.5 million Jewish children who looked in every way just like that little girl we saw a few moments ago and quelled about. And 4.5 million adults, parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles. We thought we had come so close to reaching the normality, which was all that we aspired to, a good night's sleep for us and allowing a good night's sleep for everyone else as well. And then we were brought back to a very sobering reality, and we're forced to ask a difficult question. Were these last 75 years or so of what we call the Golden Age the new norm or the aberration from the norm? Which was it? Which is it? So the bad news is that AJC had to blow the whistle. And we began blowing the whistle and ringing the alarms in 2000 and 2001 when this pathology resurfaced on the European continent again, and with a vengeance. And I have to tell you here that getting from that moment to this moment tonight was not simple. We dealt for years, and there's a book to be written about it for anyone who's looking for a dissertation project, in how various European actors, governments, presidents, prime ministers, interior ministers, justice ministers, ambassadors reacted to AJC's cri de coeur. It began with the President of France, Jacques Chirac, saying to us in his private office, "My friends, there is no anti-Semitism. I know my country better than you." That was the President of France speaking, as Jews in France began to remove their kippot or hide it under a baseball cap and enhance security at their synagogues and schools and centers. And after that came the French Foreign Minister, Hubert Védrine, who said to an AJC group, "My friends, what you think is anti-Semitism is only," and I quote him, "the importation of the Arab-Israeli conflict onto French soil." Think about that one. And on it went, and not just in France, as we went through layers of denial, and then partial acknowledgement, and relativization, and then weaponization, as it became a tool in a right-left battle, depending on who was in power. And on it went. And as it crossed the ocean to the United States and caught many by surprise. That's the bad news. It's back. The genie is back out of the bottle. and the Pfizer vaccine that we had clung to wasn't fully successful. But then there's good news as a response to the bad news. And the good news is what we celebrate on this stage in just a couple of moments. That however long it took and however difficult the road was, one by one, governments, leaders woke up and began to understand, as we had said from the beginning, this is your problem at least as much as it's our problem. In fact, it's even a little different this time around, because in 1938, my parents, and perhaps some of yours, Beverly Rosenbaum's, Harriet Schleifer's, and others, they were trapped. They were trapped here in Europe. Even when Hitler was willing to let them go, but they had nowhere to go. The Evian Conference was organized in 1938 as a charade to give the appearance of activity when none was planned. But as AJC told world leaders in the early 2000s, this time it's different. If heaven forbid Jews have to leave, Jews are not trapped. Thank God for Israel. But then we added, but where will Europe go? Where will the Europe of the post-war Enlightenment, the post-war protection of human dignity, the post-war peace project, where will Europe go? This is not our fight to be fought alone. This is your fight to be led by you. And one by one they woke up. And then it came across the Atlantic Ocean. And American Jews, too, were to some extent caught fast asleep because we were so privileged in our belief in American exceptionalism and the extraordinary success of American Jews, and rightly so. And yet, they still wouldn't let us sleep at night, would they? And so, as much as it's bad news, it's good news to know that there are people who represent powerful institutions and governments who are ready to wage the fight alongside AJC and others who have the courage, the will, the determination to say, never again, but to mean it. Because, as we are here in Israel, Ein brera, we have no choice. We owe it to that young girl, we owe it to your children and grandchildren, and we certainly owe it to my and my wife's grandchildren to stand up and fight as strongly, as committedly, as perseverantly, as proudly as we must. And I have no doubt, because I'm an AJC believer, that as long as AJC is strong, our grandchildren, Juju, are protected, for which I want to thank you. And on that note, I'd like to invite to the stage another member of the AJC staff dream team, and perhaps, hint, hint, a future candidate for this award, Holly Hufnagel. Holly?
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone. We will be honoring 7 esteemed individuals who are special envoys or coordinators tasked with the vital responsibility of making the world safer for Jewish communities, fostering Jewish life, and promoting pluralistic societies where Jews and all people are protected. The honorees are Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, United States Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. Katharina von Schnurbein, European Commission Coordinator on combating anti-Semitism and fostering Jewish life. Dr. Felix Klein, Federal Government Commissioner for Jewish Life in Germany in the fight against anti-Semitism. Lord John Mann, Independent Advisor to the UK Government on Anti-Semitism. Edo Verdoner, the Netherlands National Coordinator on combating anti-Semitism. And Fernando Lautenberg, Commissioner for Monitoring and Combating Anti-Semitism at the Organization of American States. And our very own Rabbi Andrew Baker, AJC Director of International Jewish Affairs, and personal representative of the OSCE Chairperson in Office on combating anti-Semitism. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming back David Harris and the recipients of the inaugural AJC David Harris Award. Thank you, everyone. I would now like to introduce Katharina von Schnurbein, European Commission Coordinator on combating anti-Semitism and fostering Jewish life, to accept this award on behalf of the envoys.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, on behalf of my fellow special envoys on combating anti-Semitism and fostering Jewish life, I have the tremendous honor and pleasure to thank you wholeheartedly. Michael Tichnor, David, Ted there, and the entire AJC leadership for your acknowledgement and this wonderful inaugural David Harris Award. We receive it, and I think I can speak on all of our behalf with gratitude and also with great humility. The fact that this inaugural award carries your name, dear David, says probably more about you than about us. You may have retired from a job, but certainly not from your sense of duty and your passion to stand up for justice, call out anti-Semitism and bigotry, build bridges, and care for the well-being of Jews around the world. In this passion, it is this passion and this sense of duty that we share as representatives of national governments and of regional organizations, the OAS and the EU. And these organizations are convinced that it is, in the first instance, and David mentioned it already, for state authorities to fight anti-Semitism, and it is not to be left to the Jews. When I was appointed in 2015, one government in Europe had an action plan on anti-Semitism, Norway. Today, the European Union has a strategy with almost 100 actions, and we are determined to globally address all forms of anti-Semitism and to foster Jewish life. As a German and as a non-Jew, it has been the honor of my life to help a strategy see the day of light that has at its very core the ultimate aim to foster Jewish life in Europe and globally. Today, all 27 EU countries have committed to putting forward actions and strategies, and more than half of them have already done so. Many countries and cities are developing action plans. Police and teachers are being trained to recognize anti-Semitism. Football clubs, universities, and businesses are adopting the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. Thanks to an AJC-convened meeting, the seven of us, had the opportunity in February to share our experience in combating anti-Semitism with senior White House staff as they were preparing the United States' own anti-Semitism action plan that was recently presented. 7 years ago, we were not more than a handful of anti-Semitism special envoys, including one from Israel. Today, more than 30 governments and international organizations have appointed envoys, some Jewish, other non-Jewish like myself. We cooperate closely across continents, and together we have a voice. A few months ago, we ensured a strong response to an anti-racism report in the UN, which called for the suspension of the use of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism among UN countries. Last week, 19 of us signed a letter to the new CEO of Twitter, Linda Yaccarino, urging her to address the proliferation of anti-Semitism on Twitter and reinstate content moderation. We await her response. None of this would have been thinkable a few years ago. That we are where we are today is also thanks to the AJC and to the relentless work of David Harris over the past 4.5 decades, convincing governments of their responsibility. And it is thanks to the determination of great AJC colleagues like Rabbi Baker and like Holly Hofnagel that we can do so together. So once again, many thanks to you and to the whole AJC family for this precious award. It is a strong encouragement to redouble our efforts in working towards Tikkun Olam, a planet free from anti-Semitism.
I just wanted to come up here, moved by the moment. First, David Harris, thank you for honoring us with your presence today in presenting the first David Harris Award. More importantly, thank you for allowing us to honor you for your 30-plus years as CEO of this great organization and nearly 4.5 decades of dedicated service overall. We are all in your debt. I also want to thank the special envoys. Katarina, thank you for speaking on behalf of all. It is a remarkable feat if we stop just for a moment to think about the power of the world coming together, as you just saw, as we just saw on the stage, and thinking about the work that's done on a daily basis in countries around the world to combat anti-Semitism. Katarina, to you and to all of the envoys, congratulations on being not just honored here today, but being the first recipients of the David Harris Award. We are grateful to all of you for the incredible work that you've done and will continue to do. And finally this, the work around the world that was described here today was so important, but as Katarina touched on, we are at an incredible moment here in the United States. And from AJC's publishing of our call to action against anti-Semitism over 2 years ago to the White House meeting in December where Doug Emhoff led a discussion about what needed to be done, where we urged the creation of a national action plan here, to the meeting that took place at the White House just a few short months later with the special envoys brought to the White House by AJC to share their own insight from what they've accomplished in all of their countries around the world, to the recent publication of the White House National Strategy to Counter Antisemitism here in the United States. We should all be immensely proud of the work that AJC has done to get us to this point, but I wanted to just come up here today to announce what we will do next, which is the launching of the next phase of this process. The National Task Force, the AJC National Task Force for the implementation of the White House Action Plan on Anti-Semitism. There are more than 100 concrete actions in the White House plan that the federal government will pursue to keep the Jewish community safe. There are more than 100 additional actions in the White House plan that call, just as our call to action does, that call on governments, local and state governments, businesses, nonprofits, universities, educational institutions, K through 12, all across the country to take action to combat anti-Semitism. And our national task force will draw on the expertise of AJC around the world, all of our offices around the world who have contributed to these national action plans and their implementation, and the experts and the incredible talent we have in our 25 regional offices around the United States of America to ensure that every one of the action items in the National Action Plan is followed through on, to make sure that the timelines in the National Action Plan are carried out, and so that when we return to Global Forum in 1 year, thanks to the efforts of AJC, who contributed dozens and dozens of the recommendations in the plan, our task force will ensure that when we return to Global Forum next year, we will be able to celebrate the implementation, not just the existence of the National Action Plan, but the very concrete actions that will be taken by the federal government, by state and local governments, by our staff around the country who will work with businesses and nonprofits, with sports leagues and cultural institutions, who will work with nonprofits, our intergroup partners, our interfaith partners, all to ensure that the White House Action Plan becomes a reality in ways that will keep the Jewish community safe, secure, and strong. We look forward to reporting on that next year at Global Forum. But I want everyone to know how committed AJC is to doing this work, not just me, our entire staff across the country and across the world. There is so much at stake for our community in America. Again, I want to thank David. I want to thank the special envoys. I want to thank our incredible team who is already working so hard to implement this new national task force. And I want to thank all of you for the incredible support in getting us to this moment and the work that we will do together to help protect our community. Thank you very much.
Please welcome AJC Board of Trustees member, Curtis Lane.
I got to tell you, when they asked me to do this, they didn't tell me I was following David Harris, followed by Ted. It's like wrong batting order. But anyway, we now turn our attention to an issue that's top of mind for all of us, the war in Ukraine. AJC has been outspoken in its support of Ukrainian sovereignty since the fall of the Soviet Union. Our engagement with the 250,000-strong Jewish community in Ukraine runs very deep. I had the privilege of being part of a group that went to Ukraine with David in 2014. At the time, Russia was invading Ukraine in Crimea and the Donbass region. I don't think any of us that were on that trip would have imagined what is happening now. When Russia commenced its brutal, unprovoked war of aggression, AJC immediately sprung into action. We rallied thousands to contact their congressional representatives to urge them to boost military support for Ukraine. David led 2 humanitarian missions to the Poland-Ukrainian border, and we sponsored 2 flights to Israel for hundreds of Ukrainian Jewish refugees, which I had the privilege of experiencing personally when I flew with 141 of them from Budapest to Tel Aviv last April. And thanks to the generosity of the AJC community, including many of you here today, our Stand With Ukraine Fund has raised over $2.5 million. Our support continues, and I'm pleased to announce today that AJC will subsidize the shipment of more than $5 million of donated medical supplies to Ukraine. Critical to the ability of Ukraine to withstand this brutal assault by Russia is the courage of the Ukrainian people. Medical supplies, money, and military support are obviously important, but it is the strength and resilience of the Ukrainian people that is most important in making the difference. I am therefore honored to introduce Boris Lochkin, who is president of the Jewish Confederation of Ukraine and a very longtime friend of the AJC. Then we will hear the experiences of 2 Ukrainians who are in Odessa and Kyiv, respectively, who will participate in a live recording of AJC's podcast, People of the Pod. Please join me in welcoming Boris. Thank you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, shalom. Thank you for invitation to the AJC Global Forum 2023. Today, standing at this gorgeous stage with so special guests and friends, my heart and thoughts take me back to last June, when the AJC Global Forum 2022, the audience at the New York Central Synagogue stood up chanting "Glory to Ukraine." I think you remember about this. These were unforgettable emotions for which I am grateful to all of you. A year ago, during the 4th month of the full-scale Russian-Ukrainian war, these symbolic words, "Glory to Ukraine," were surely addressed also to Ukrainian Jews. We, as well as all Ukrainians, according to David Harris, became victims of a human drama of biblical scale that turned the lives of millions of Ukrainians upside down. A year later, this drama is still going on. And without your help, without support of the Jewish world and the AJC especially, the plot of this tragedy could have become much more tragic. In February 2022, the first 8 centers for Ukrainian migrants were deployed along the border with Western Europe by AJC forces. The Stand with Ukraine Emergency Fund was founded by the AJC in the early days of the full-scale Russian invasion. Thanks to this fund, the Jewish Confederation of Ukraine managed to evacuate to the Western Ukraine and abroad and save lives of thousands of Ukrainian Jews, elderly Jews, most of whom are Holocaust survivors, children and families. The AJC has also played an important role in consolidating US bipartisan support for Ukraine. I want to especially remind you that the AJC initiated and sent a letter calling on the Joe Biden administration to provide comprehensive assistance to Ukraine on March 7 last year. It was the 11th day of the Russian invasion. At the time, not everyone even could imagine that Ukrainians would be able to hold back Russian troops. We, Ukrainian Jews, will remember this forever. We are sincerely grateful to the AJC for such a position, since we do not separate ourselves from a single political Ukrainian nation against which Russia is committing genocide. No one has any doubt that Russia's endless war crimes are genocidal in nature. The passé resolution on recognizing the deportation of Ukrainian children as genocide is a natural consequence of the current Russian policy. But the evil born of hatred and intolerance has not yet been defeated. The destruction of Kakhovskaya hydroelectric power station is a vivid example of that days. Along with Ukrainians, Jewish communities in regions is flooding, suffer ecological, technological, and social disaster. Nowadays, the whole world understands the scales of what had happened, participates in the evacuation of the victims and the delivery of necessary aid. The Jews are at the front line. You probably heard that a few days ago, the chief rabbi of Ukraine, Moshe Asman, went to Kherson on a risk mission and found himself under Russian shelling here. We are here to praise our beloved Israeli state, courageous and heroic. In front of you, standing at our holy land, I want to emphasize one more time, by rendering support to Ukraine, you surely help Ukrainian Jews as well. We turn to you with our sincere appeal to please continue your life-saving help and even ask you to increase your support and assistance as the enemy is still too strong. We still need more weapons, more money, more humanitarian aid. Until the brutal aggressor suffers a well-deserved and just punishment, until the Ukrainians clear and liberate all their lands from our enemies, we will continue to ask you about this. Without our victory, the whole world will not be able to feel safe. Thank you, and glory to Ukraine.
Please welcome to the stage Diana Buchman, Margot Vidovichenko, and host of AJC's People of the Pod, Manya Brashear-Pashman.
afternoon. Today, on the AJC Global Forum 2023 stage, we will record the first of 2 special episodes in front of a live audience here in Tel Aviv. With me on stage today are 2 extraordinarily courageous women whose lives were turned upside down on February 24th, 2022, the day Russia invaded their home country of Ukraine. They packed up what belongings they could, left behind their lives, their fathers, and started to rebuild here in Israel, a country they never expected to call home. Diana Buchman and her 2 sons, ages 9 and 10, lived in the seaside city of Odessa, Ukraine. For some time, she ran a Jewish orphanage, as well as one of Ukraine's hottest nightclubs. Her first husband wanted to make Aliyah, but she did not, and so they divorced. But when Russia invaded her home and she fled, like so many others, her plans changed. Diana and her sons now live in the Jerusalem suburb of Piskat Zev. Margot Vdovichenko was living the ordinary life of a Ukrainian teenager in the capital city of Kyiv. Her mother married an Israeli citizen, and at the time, assured Margot and her brother that she would not join him in Israel until they were older. When Russia invaded, Margot, her brother, and her mother found themselves on an unexpected journey to the Jewish state. Please welcome Diana and Margot to People of the Pod. Diana, I would like to start with you. When did you flee Odessa? And after originally declining Aliyah, how did you decide to come to Israel after all?
The first moments we don't believe, we till the end don't believe that it can start. And me as a principal of Jewish Volunteer Center, I want to stay and help people, old people, people with special needs. But my mother tells me all the time that now my job is to protect my kids, and we need to get out from Ukraine. So we're going to the Romania, and I think where can we go, what we can do. And my Jewish clever mom said that only Israel is waiting for you. Only all over the world you will be like refugees. Only in Israel you will be the part of community, you will be the citizen. For the first seconds, you will be the part of this country. So I decided that, yes, this is, she said it true, this is, it means, yeah, I'm going to Israel.
But what did you leave behind?
All my life. I think I have a life probably much like yours. And I have a lot of friends, I have a good job, I help people. All my life I want to be an actress, and before the war I started a career as an actress. I was on TV show, everybody recognized me. I even make my stand-up show. I have a lot of friends. I have a real perfect life, and I left it all there.
They're going to post some pictures on the sides here at some point. And when they go up, I want you to tell us what we're looking at. These pictures were taken from inside a bus. I'm just going to wait. Just hold on for a second, make sure. Oh, are they? Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at those walls. So we are looking at pictures taken from inside a bus, and the people are saying goodbye to each other. Can you tell us who they are? And I'm curious kind of what's going through your head as you look at these pictures and remember those moments.
Of course, I remember this moment, and yes, it is the parting time that we see my parents, and we go to evacuation. And this morning, we can't talk with each other. We only look to each other with the terror-red eyes, and the parting words of my father was, if it will be bombing, take your kids down on the floor and cover them. And it really helped because when we were in the Romanian side before, it started a bombing, and I take my kids down, and that was the first time that they understand that it is a real war, and they afraid and me afraid. I think that this is the finish. But there on the floor, I remember all story of my grandmother about the Holocaust, and realized that I'm not in the same situation. I have Israel, I have hotel, I have people support, I have suitcase, I have phone. So I need to stand up and be brave and take my kids to the safety place.
Thank you. Thank you for taking us back to that moment. I know that was really challenging. Margot, we also have a picture from you, from your journey as you fled Kyiv. Can you describe what you saw along the way and why you thought to take a picture of this?
Well, on the picture, we can see the main and the central road in Kyiv. This road was used by many people to go to work, to go to the city center, to go to school. I was using it every day to go to school, like for about 5 years. And this military equipment was left on the streets of Kyiv, on the roads of Kyiv, when Russian forces were advancing really rapidly according to their plan to take Kyiv as fast as they can. The plan's name was Kyiv for 3 days. That's why, as a result, they failed, and they left a lot of military equipment, cars, tanks broken on the streets, and this is a really bright example of it. This place is located really next to my home, where I've been living for a while, and it's really hard to see this road so empty, because it's usually crowded and many cars, because everyone is going somewhere using this road.
Must have been really stunning to see this. Can you describe the life that you left behind in Ukraine?
I think as everyone who left Ukraine, they left a lot of things there. First of all, I left some members of my family. For example, my dad, he's still working as a surgeon in a Kyiv's hospital. He's working there during the whole wartime. He's helping people, saving their lives, but I really miss him, and I don't have an opportunity to see him. I know for how long. But yeah, I've also left our apartment that gave me a huge feeling of comfort and of warmth and coziness, and of course my family that I really miss. They're still there.
How have you adjusted to your new life here in Israel?
My life changed a lot when I came to Israel. First of all, I came to school. It's located in Tel Aviv. I made there a lot of new friends. I made friends even with people from Russia. It was a big challenge for me to have these friends, but they're really great people, and I'm really happy that they're in my life. We started our youth here, so my social life began here. We started hanging out somewhere, going out, and so on. In Ukraine, I can say that I was really socialized, but I still love this cozy and warm place.
Your youth began here. Yeah. Wow. AJC sponsored plane loads of Ukrainians seeking refuge in Israel, and I remember having a conversation with our AJC Jerusalem director, Avital Leibovich, who reminded us that people come to Israel from all over the world seeking safety. Do you feel safe here, Margot?
Growing up in Ukraine, it was exactly another situation. Like, I've been growing up in a very calm country with no actions, and I can say, like, I wasn't feeling like I'm in danger. That's why when I came to Israel, it changed a lot, because I had to understand that some streets can be dangerous for some times, and terroristic attacks can happen, and also rockets can fly from the sky. And so many countries which are near Israel can attack all the time, so we need to understand that we should think more about our safety. But I can say that here I have a huge feeling of being safe. I think it's because of great job of military and security forces which are protecting Israel citizens all the time. So we are not living in head like we are during the war. So we don't feel it. And I'm really grateful that they do their best.
Yeah. Diana, you're at a different stage of your life, and you're a mother of two, with not just one, but two careers behind you. I'm curious how you've adjusted to life in Israel, what you found rewarding, what you found difficult.
First of all, I want to say that if you are in trouble in Israel, you don't feel yourself alone. Everybody stand up and help you, and I feel it so much because when I rented the apartment, it was without nothing. And I don't understand how to furnish it, and within few days, people say to people, and bring me everything. I have everything. Within 3 days, I have everything what I need. I even have a dry machine, which I never think that I know how to use it. It's amazing country, but it is difficult for me to start all over and to work as a mom and study in Ulpan. I have no time for make a friendship, for a real friendship, and in Odessa I was somebody, and here I'm nobody yet.
Yet.
Yes.
I'm so glad you added the yet. That's very important. How have you adjusted to the different, there's a different rhythm of life here in Israel. I mean, the slower pace approaching Shabbat, for example. I'm curious how has that adjustment been? How has it changed your lifestyle?
Here you feel all the magic of this land. It's magical land. The first months, I think I live near the hotel. I pray every day because I don't have meaning of my life. What next? What I need to do? I can't live, and all the day I pray near the hotel, and I have an answers, and. Wow, it's amazing. It's easy to keep a Shabbat. Everywhere is kosher. Wow. We have in Odessa, we have 3-4 restaurants, few shops, and here I can eat everything and don't think, oh God, my God, Hashem looking for me. And what about Shabbat? You even can't go out. If you even don't want to keep a Shabbat, you can't get out because everything is closed. And my first Yom Kippur was amazing. I never see all the people, no cars, all the people going through the city and walking. Everywhere is people. Nobody on phone, nobody on cars. It's like Mashiach come, really.
Margot, that's wonderful. Margot, as you said, your father is a surgeon still in Kyiv. Do you plan to go back home as soon as it's safe?
Yeah, my dad, he's working as a surgeon still, and I really miss him. And as soon as possible, I'd like when the war ends, I'd like to go home to visit my family, to visit my friends, to see my dad finally. It would be great. And but talking about plans, I'd like to stay here, to continue my life here, to get an education here, to become a doctor here, and to continue keep in touch with people which I met exactly here. So Kiev has always been my home, but it seems like Israel became the second one.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for sharing your stories and your journeys, and thank you for joining us here at Global Forum and on People of the Pod. So thank you.
Thank you.
Israel, for us, represented hope, represented strength, represented courage, and in the law of return represented a possible future home.
1967 war happened, and in our small Jewish community in South Africa there was this tremendous pride in what the Israeli army had been able to accomplish, and it manifested itself in a pride of being Jewish, really a strong connection as a member of the Jewish community in the diaspora to Israel itself.
My connection is so deep-rooted as a South African with Zionist roots, growing up in a Zionist youth movement. My whole being is towards Jewish peoplehood and Israel. The priorities that AJC has to protect against anti-Semitism, to find Israel's rightful place, and also human rights, democracy for all were key because those things were lacking in South Africa.
The fact that AJC works with diplomats all over the world, presenting Jewish issues, presenting Israeli issues, advocating for them, I think that aspect of AJC leaves them particularly well set to advance the cause of the Jewish people around the world.
To me, AJC is so much bigger and broader than just America. We have to think of the totality of the Jewish people. It's through AJC that we are making a difference and helping that to happen.
Please welcome Chair of Matnat Chaim, Rachel Heber.
Hello everyone. Matnat Chaim, the gift of life, was founded in 2009 by my husband, Rabbi Yeshayahu Heber of Jerusalem. He suddenly developed acute kidney disease at the age of 42 and survived on dialysis until his kidney transplant. While on dialysis, my husband met a young kidney patient, Pinchas Turgeman, also on dialysis, a bereaved brother. His only brother, Yair, was killed in a terrorist attack, and he remained an only son to his parents. When my husband left for his own successful transplant, he promised Turgeman, Pinchas, to try and find him a donor. Unbelievably, after his transplant, my husband remembered his promise, did not leave a stone unturned until he found Pinchas, an altruistic kidney donor. But unfortunately, 2 weeks before the planned date of the surgery, on the way to dialysis, Pinchas suffered heart failure and passed away. That was the day my husband decided that no more people should die on dialysis. I remember him saying always that the day Pinchas passed away, that's Matnat Chaim's birthday. He dedicated all his time, his energy, his effort, and his strength to try and find people kidney donors. That's how he founded Matnat Chaim, to promote live kidney donations and eradicate waiting lists for transplant patients, for kidney transplant patients. My husband didn't have any previous medical background. He was an educator, a principal, devoted to his work, but his will to save the lives of people with kidney problems saw no limits. 3 years ago, in April 2020, My husband passed away from COVID-19, age 55. Before the Levaya, before the funeral, I said to my son, Abba is not with us anymore. He passed away, but Matnat Chaim will not die. Because I knew that's the will and that's the dream, and I slipped into his big shoes. Matnat Chaim is leading a worldwide revolution and has placed Israel first in the world in live kidney donors per population, according to the WHO, the World Health Organization, in their 20 and 21 yearly reports. More than 200 kidney transplants from live donors are performed yearly through Matnat Chaim. 90% of all altruistic donors in Israel donate through Matnat Chaim. Thank God, until today, 1,450 people, angels, I would say, have donated a kidney. 1,450 lives have been saved. 1,450 families have returned to normal life. Very often you could hear a donor saying to his recipient, 45 years, your kidney was in my body and now I'm returning it to you. I want to share with you a short story. A few years ago, a 50-year-old woman came to our house showing an interest in donating a kidney. She told us that she and her husband made aliyah from New Jersey to Israel. They were married for nearly 30 years, but were not blessed with children. She wanted to create a life, to bring new life to the world by donating a kidney. That's a way to bring life to the world. Another way, she requested one condition. She wanted to donate to a young person who will have children, and his children will be sort of a continuation for her and for her husband. We matched her to Victor. Victor was a young 25-year-old man on dialysis. She donated her kidney to Victor, and they met the day after the surgery in the ward. Victor, with tears in his eyes, came up to her and told her, Toda Rabba Ima. Thank you so much, Mother. Kaden burst out crying and said, for years and years, I'm dreaming, I'm waiting for someone to call me Ima, to call me a mother. Every week from then, Victor calls Kaden, his donor, and says to her, Shabbat Shalom, Ima. Shana Tova, Ima. How are you, Mother? 2.5 years ago, Victor had a baby girl. And this little girl has three grandmothers. His mother, his mother-in-law, and Safta Kaden, Grandma Kaden. Donating a kidney is a social act of supreme kindness and goodwill with no other motives, only to save another person, a stranger's life. We are above politics, ethnic or religious views. We are living now in times, unfortunately, of extreme social polarization. We see so much sinat chinam, unfounded hatred. But our donors, healthy people, very, very healthy people, who volunteered to have a surgery, to go into the surgery room, and to donate a part of their body to save a stranger's life. They are doing just the opposite. They are doing pure, pure loving, ahavat chinam. Altruistic kidney donors bring together people from all different walks of life. This is the true Israeli spirit we are so, so proud of. Am Israel Chai. And thank you, AJC, for the opportunity. Thank you very, very much.
Please welcome Oshrit Ben Harush.
Good afternoon. My name is Oshrit, and I am honored to be here today. A few things you need to know about me. I am 43 years old. I live in Jerusalem. I am manager of residential care home for teenagers with mental health problems, and I am donor 932. Usually, I am not a person of words, and you should also know I don't speak English so well. So I hope the combination of these two will not become a disaster. When I ask why I donate my kidney, my answer was simple. I have two, and I only need one, so why not? I tried twice to donate, but I was forced to push it off both times. On the third time, I was successful. I don't believe in coincidence. I truly believe it was my destiny to donate my kidney to Atanas. All of the delays happened for this reason. Atanas and I would never have met if I had been successful in the first two times. Whenever we speak about donating a kidney, we talk about the impact on the recipient and the return to normal life. But we don't speak about what the donor gets in return. So I would like to tell you what I gained. First, I am a better person. I am more patient, welcoming, and learn how to put things in perspective. Second, I am also healthier now than ever before. As a donor, you must drink a lot of water, eat healthy, and exercise. In other words, everything I didn't do before. Third, I'm blessed to learn a new culture, break down walls, and create two new families, the Zaire family and Matnat Chaim family. The Zaire family and friends adopt me as if I was on one of their own. We meet in weekend, we celebrate both Jewish and Christian holiday, and we travel together. What an exciting day it was to see Atanas go down on the aisle at his wedding with amazing Andrea. Last, but most importantly, the Matnat Chaim family. They have become such more than a kidney matching organization. They are a source for inspiration. It goes beyond the support they give the donor before, during, and after the operation. Rabbanit Rachel continues the legacy of her late husband, Harav Aber, Zichrono Livracha, by getting to know each and every donor personally. Before Rabbanit asked me to speak here today, she thanked me for donation the second kidney. Apparently, someone I know and I'd not been in touch with for years read our story and decided to donate her kidney too. I want to take this opportunity to tell each and every one of you, if you're thinking about donating a kidney, reach out. It's not as difficult as one might imagine, and it's definitely very important. Matnat Chaim is here for help, and so am I. Please feel free to reach out and become part of our family. Thank you so much for the attention. Please welcome my dear friend, Atanas.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Atanas. I'm a 37-year-old doctor from Nazareth. Thanks to Oshrit and Matnat Chaim, I also proudly hold the title Kidney Transplant Recipient. I came here today to share with you my incredible story, a story of struggle, of hope, and of resilience. Thank you for this opportunity. My struggle with kidney disease began when I was a medical student in Budapest. Despite all the complexities, I pushed on, graduating med school with honors. After passing the Israeli medical boards and during my internship year, my kidneys finally gave up. And my nephrologist told me what I already knew. You will need to start dialysis immediately. And you need to find a kidney donor because kidney transplant will be your best chance at survival. Ironically, on May 17, 2020, on the very same day I was supposed to marry the love of my life, Andrea, in a dark coincidence, it was the day I was rushed into a surgery so they can place a dialysis catheter in my abdomen. Being on dialysis made me feel extremely sick. I had to take some time off my job at the hospital. But being me, I refused to stay at home feeling hopeless. I managed to have the dialysis machine brought to me at home, and I started connecting daily for 9 hours, so I can go back and work at the hospital. Not everyone liked this idea, as they were worried for my well-being, but I couldn't care less. Being at work, treating others, kept me distracted from my deteriorating health situation. I got the call I was waiting for in August 2020. It was Tirza from Matnat Chaim. She said, Atanas, we found you a donor. My mom was just beside me when I got the call. Her tears of happiness did not stop that evening. I was so curious and wanted to know everything about my donor, but the only thing I was allowed to know that she was a woman, and she was concerned that I'm a very good person. I had my kidney transplant on the 7th of December 2020, in the midst of the second corona wave. I was one of the first kidney transplantees during COVID times. The first thing I remember while anesthesia was wearing off was my mom and Andrea beside my bed. They said everything went well and the kidney already started making urine during the surgery. The next day, being me, I was out of bed on my feet. I went down to the transplant unit, that's almost 3 floors down, and we lit together the first candle of Hanukkah with Professor Moore, the surgeon, with my nephrologist and the rest of the staff. We also decorated a small Christmas tree together. I think we all agreed that this was my own personal Hanukkah miracle. So how is life after surgery, after transplant, you might ask? Well, it can't get better. Oshrit and I have celebrated 2 kidneyversaries already, and we look forward to many more. Now I have a new family in Jerusalem. Andrea and I finally had our wedding last summer, with Oshrit being the guest of honor. I went back to being the doctor and not the patient. I treat others and I save lives. And I spent a big portion of my life promoting live kidney donations. Finally, this whole journey has made me a better person. It taught me to appreciate the small things in life, the things that truly matter, you know? And as a friend once told me, Atanas, you only started truly living once you started dying. I'd like to share with you all that the Rabbanit Heber received not long ago the prestigious Israel Prize for a long life period. I'd like to call her. I'd like to humbly call her to the stage for a joint photo. I'd like to say thank you. And one more last thing. Whoever wants to join, connect, or assist to the Matnait Chaim Foundation, you can find the leaflets just outside. Thank you for this opportunity.
Dear participants to the AJC 2023 implement. Allow me to begin by thanking the American Jewish Committee for the invitation to address your global forum. It is an honor to speak to your distinguished gathering, but it is above all an opportunity for me to express my country's sincere appreciation to the AJC for its true friendship towards the Kingdom of Morocco. Indeed, the relationship between Morocco and the AJC is long-standing, built on decades of fruitful exchange. It has allowed us to build a large network of meaningful friendships within the American Jewish community that have become some of the best advocates of a strong and enduring Moroccan-American partnership. For more than 30 years, we have had the pleasure of welcoming great diversity of your delegations across all sectors, from board members to young leaders, business people, and civil society actors. The latest visit took place only a few weeks ago with an important AJC delegation led by my dear friends Jason Isaacson and Michael Feldstein. The particularity of this trip was the visit that the delegation paid to Dakhla in the Moroccan Sahara, where they met with local authorities and civil society leaders, and they were able to witness for themselves the development, growth, and prosperity of Moroccan southern provinces. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share with you 3 thoughts and messages as a humble contribution to the work of your forum. The first message is about the human ties between Morocco, its Jewish community, and Jews around the world. As you all know very well, Morocco has historically been a land of coexistence, where all Moroccans, Muslim and Jews, lived in peace and harmony under the protection of the Moroccan monarchs. Moroccan Hebrew traditions are respected, protected, and promoted in the kingdom. It is indeed a component of the Moroccan identity as underscored by the 2011 Constitution of the Kingdom. In Morocco, our Jewish community has its own ecosystem, including synagogues, schools, yeshivas, courts, kosher food and associations, which allowed it to lead a normal life. Under the leadership of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, over 15 synagogues and 168 Jewish cemeteries and holy sites were renovated. In the same vein, His Majesty the King established in July 2022 3 institutions aimed to consecrate the Hebraic affluence of the Moroccan identity. The first institution is the National Council of the Moroccan Jewish Community, to oversee the management of community affairs. The second institution is the Commission of Moroccan Jews Abroad, to strengthen the links of Moroccan Jews established abroad with their country of origin. And the third institution is the Moroccan Judaism Foundation, to promote the Judeo-Moroccan heritage, safeguards its traditions, and preserve its specificities. These bonds between the people are the driver behind the strong ties Morocco has built with the Jewish community around the world. The second message is about the relation between Morocco, the USA, and Israel. Morocco and the USA are strong allies, with relations dating back to 1777. Making of Morocco the first nation to recognize the independence of the United States. Similarly, and as I spoke about before, the links between Morocco and its Jewish community are also historic. Therefore, the trilateral declaration signed on the 22nd of December 2020 by Morocco, the USA, and Israel came as a natural evolution of these relations and ties, which makes the decision to re-establish relations with Israel truly based on convictions as underlined by His Majesty the King. Since then, bilateral relations with Israel have been flourishing at all levels. Through official visits, we had more than 12 visits of high-ranking officials from Israel in 2 years. 30 agreements have been signed. Trade has witnessed an unprecedented growth by 160% over 2 years. And the people-to-people relation has increased, with a 5-fold increase of Israeli tourists visiting Morocco. And these relations, would it be with the USA or with Israel, are bound to grow further. And here comes the role of the AJC. The constant support that the AJC has always expressed to Morocco is based on the recognition that we are linked not only by shared strategic objectives, but also by deeply rooted people-to-people ties. This solid foundation of people-to-people ties is the ultimate key to success. It lies at the heart of the genuine momentum that has stimulated Morocco's growing cooperation with Israel. As we are among friends, allow me to call on you to also do your part in this dynamic. I believe there is still a great potential for the American Jewish community to play a greater part in accompanying the trilateral process. The third and last message is about the regional dynamic that the normalization agreements created. The normalization agreements between Arab countries and Israel created an incredible momentum for peace and prosperity in the entire region. After decades of war and hatred, there is now a unique opportunity for peace. Through dialogue and cooperation, the people of our region can finally reap the fruits of real peace, which can be seen and felt in their everyday lives. And this would certainly offer the best incentive to those in the region and beyond, watching closely and wondering whether to join our endeavor. Widening the circle of peace in the region remains an objective which we should all strive for. To do so, we have to promote coexistence and fight all actions that feed violence and hatred, avoid useless provocations, and particularly in Jerusalem. Under the visionary leadership of His Majesty the King, Morocco will continue to play its natural role as a staunch supporter of peace, stability, and cooperation in the region. The finality remains to achieve a just and equitable peace based on the two-state solution, with the Palestinian state in the borders of June 1967, with East Jerusalem as capital, living side by side in peace and stability with the State of Israel. As chairman of Al-Quds Committee, Jerusalem Committee, His Majesty the King pays a great attention to preserving that city open to all religions. Jerusalem should be the symbol of coexistence, not the field of battle, and not taken hostage by radicals from both sides. In doing so, Morocco knows it can count on the partnership of the AJC. Finally, I would to thank once again the AJC for your true friendship and valuable support, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Please welcome Chair of AJC's Board of Governors, Bobby Lapin.
Good afternoon. What a powerful plenary thus far, and what a privilege to be a part of it. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce Israel's Minister of Strategic Affairs, Ron Dermer. As I'm sure many people in this room know, Minister Dermer is a familiar face to many of us in this room, having previously served a very successful 7-year term as Israel's ambassador to the United States. He is, of course, a longtime friend and partner of AJC, and we are delighted to have him back with us on the AJC Global Forum stage, a venue with which he is quite familiar. Minister Dermer's ambassadorial tenure in Washington included a number of significant diplomatic achievements for the State of Israel, for which he played personally a very critical role. During that time, the United States moved its embassy to Jerusalem. Israel and its Gulf partners ushered in the historic Abraham Accords, and he helped secure a well-known 10-year, $38 billion aid package for the State of Israel. He is now a close advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and in doing so, Minister Dermer returned to Israel in 2021 and now leads, as I said, Israel's Strategic Affairs Ministry. Under his leadership, this particular ministry works on several key priorities, including expanding relations with the Abraham Accords countries, deepening U.S.-Israel ties, and countering the threat posed by Iran. Now, that's a fairly quite significant portfolio in and of itself. So, settle in for what I know will now be a fascinating and insightful conversation between Minister Dermer and our own AJC Chief Policy and Political Affairs Director, Jason Isaacson. Minister Dermer, we are delighted to welcome you back to the AJC Global Forum. There is much to discuss, and we look forward to hearing your insights. So please join me in welcoming Jason Isaacson and Minister Ron Dermer.
Minister, when you served in Washington, you were a regular guest at the AJC Global Forum. I think you deserve that Saturday Night Live jacket for coming on at least 5 times to AJC. I know that since coming to Washington, since coming back to Israel, you have not made so many public appearances. Thank you for making this a special occasion for us and for you.
Thank you. Well, I've tried since I've been in the Israeli government to speak less and do more. But the reason why I wanted to come here is, first of all, to express my appreciation to all of you at the AJC for what you do to strengthen the partnership between the United States and Israel, and also what you do all around the world, with all your branches around the world, to deepen ties between Israel and all those countries that you come from. That's number one. Number two is I never got a chance to say farewell to David Harris. And we used to do this gig together year after year at the AJC. And David has done so much for the Jewish state and the Jewish people. I used to say Israel doesn't need a foreign minister because we had David Harris. But I just want to thank you in front of everybody here and also the people of Israel to commend you for everything that you've done. Now, the other thing I wanted to say is I never got a chance to congratulate in public Ted Deutsch. David left very big shoes to fill. And the day I found out that you had succeeded, I know it's hard to leave Congress, but that you had succeeded in getting Ted Deutsch, Congressman Ted Deutsch, to join the organization, I could not think of a better replacement. And I want to thank all of you, I want everyone here to understand how much Ted did in the United States Congress to strengthen the relationship between the United States and Israel, to keep it on a firm bipartisan footing, which it should always be. And I really commend him as well for everything he did there and for everything that you're going to do at this great organization in the future.
Thank you, Ron. Also, before we go further...
Now, where's my jacket? Where's my jacket?
Backstage.
Okay.
Before we go further, I also want to say a word about Nasser Bourita, the foreign minister of Morocco. AJC has come to know him over the years. We very much appreciate his appearing in the AJC Global Forum. And also, there are Moroccans in the room who have come here as the guests at AJC to Global Forum. I want to thank them from the Moon Association and others. And also our good friend back in Morocco, Ambassador Serge Berdugo, President of the Moroccan Jewish Community, partner of AJC. Minister Dermer, I want to start by asking about 3 threats posed by Iran to Israel and how Israel is responding to those threats. First, of course, the Iranian nuclear threat. There have been reports that the US and Iran have been secretly negotiating an agreement in recent weeks to freeze Iran's continued march toward weapons-grade 90% uranium enrichment in return for limited sanctions relief. Both capitals have denied these reports. What is Israel's view? And assuming that the reports are true, how would a freeze at what is essentially threshold nuclear status affect Israel's calculus, Israel's options?
Well, first of all, let me just say that the United States, the Biden administration, has been very candid with us throughout this process, and we have very, very close cooperation. Some of you have heard the Prime Minister say that the cooperation between the 2 administrations are as high as it's ever been in security and intelligence matters, and that's true. And as somebody who served as ambassador for 7.5 years and been involved in the U.S.-Israel relationship at the highest levels probably for 12 or 13 out of the last 14 years, I can say that it's never been better. And we have candid conversations, and I think very frank and open conversations about Iran. We don't always agree on this issue. For us, any deal with Iran that would leave them with the infrastructure that they need in order to have a nuclear weapons capability is a non-starter for us, and we're opposed to it. You all remember that 8 years ago, the Prime Minister of Israel went to Congress and he spoke out against the nuclear deal at the time. Now, then they were talking about a deal that had sunsets, remember? And it was 5 years and 8 years and 10 years and 15 years, and it sounded like a long time. Well, we've already passed the 5-year point. The 8-year point is going to happen this October when all the missile restrictions on Iran will be removed. Then, at 10 years, centrifuge restrictions are removed. And then 15 years, there's no restriction on stockpile. So it's very important for us that if you're going to do a deal with Iran, either you remove the physical infrastructure that they would need to have a nuclear weapons capability, or you don't put those sunsets in place. That was the core problem with the deal, is that it had these sunsets, which means that all the restrictions on Iran's nuclear program would be automatically removed. And in those 2 words, you understand Israel's opposition. So when I assess any deal, and when the Prime Minister does, or the Israeli government, we're going to look at, well, what is Iran getting and what is Iran giving up? Is Iran asked to remove its infrastructure? Is Iran asked to roll back its infrastructure? And what are they getting? So we know they're going to try to get money, and we know that they're not going to use that money to establish a GI Bill for returning members of the Revolutionary Guard, right? They're going to use that money to fuel their campaign of aggression and terrorism throughout the region, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Yemen, in all these areas where they're trying to essentially put a conventional noose around Israel's neck. And what are they giving up? And you just heard the Supreme Leader of Iran yesterday say that we're happy to do a deal. We're just not willing to change the infrastructure that we have. So what exactly is the United States getting for this deal? We know what they're giving, but we don't know what they're getting. So we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
But freezing their stockpile would not be enough.
I'm sorry?
Freezing their stockpile would not be enough. Freezing their enrichment.
Because then I think what it does is it means that you've reconciled with a higher level of enrichment in Iran. And we thought that was a bad idea then, and we think it's a bad idea today. But I must tell you, Israel is not surprised, saying we have an open, constant dialogue. I was just in Washington, and I met with the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, along with our National Security Advisor, Tzachi Hanegbi, and we've had very candid conversations, and we're trying to do what we can to get on the same page as the United States, and we're going to continue to try to do that as this unfolds in the next few weeks and months.
Okay, well, that level of cooperation is reassuring. Thank you. Let's hope it's cooperation. Minister, second, there are regular launchings of Iranian rockets and missiles at Israel, some by Iranian forces in Syria, others by Iranian-supported terrorists in Gaza and southern Lebanon. Do you see any possibility that the recently reached rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which followed a similar agreement by Iran and the United Arab Emirates to reestablish ties, could have any effect on Iran's regional aggression, including its ceaseless aggression toward Israel?
No, I don't think it's going to. It's certainly not going to affect it positively. If anything, it could affect it negatively, because as Iran becomes economically stronger, as I said, as it feels more confidence, then I think it is going to arm all of its terror proxies in the region even more, and that represents a real danger to Israel. A lot of people were concerned about this deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. The way that I see it, I think that the reason why this deal happened is that there is a perception, rightly or wrongly, that the United States is taking a step back from the region. And given that perception, that's what creates, I think, the sense in Saudi Arabia that they need to try to find some rapprochement, as you said, with Iran. And the question I ask myself, as a Minister of Strategic Affairs, frankly, it's not the job I wanted. I wanted to be the Minister of Tactical Affairs. That's a laugh line.
Oh, we missed that.
Because no one's a tactician. Everyone's a strategist. By the way, anybody who wants to work for me, if you send me a resume and you say you're an expert in tactics, I'm going to hire you on the spot, because everybody's a strategist. But when I think about the issue strategically, I say to myself, do the Saudis understand clearly what Iran is? Have they changed their fundamental view of the dangers that Iran poses to them? And the answer is they have not changed their view. They understand exactly what they're dealing with, but they saw the Chinese as a party. Instead of the United States, they could bring the Iranians to the table. Why? Because the Chinese buy about 90%. About 88% of Iran's oil
and we don't talk to Iran.
Is bought by the Chinese. So they figure they can bring the Iranians to the table, and maybe they can help them solve the problem that they have in Yemen. Because the problem in Yemen for the Saudis is sort of like Israel's problem in Lebanon with Hezbollah. The Houthis are sort of the Saudis' Hezbollah. And they're hoping to extricate themselves from this situation there so the leaders of Saudi Arabia can focus on their vision for the future. And they believe that the Chinese can help deliver that. Now, time will tell whether that's true or not, but I think the question for Israel is, have the Saudis changed their fundamental posture vis-a-vis Iran? And I don't think they have.
Does it affect in any way the long-range vision to have a strategic architecture for the Arabian Gulf that includes ultimately Israel?
I don't think so, and I hope it doesn't. And we'll have to see how long this is going to last. Remember, the rupture in relations between the Saudis and the Iranians came about 7 years ago because there was a cleric who was killed, and then they went after an embassy in Tehran, and you had a back and forth with them, and for 7 years they didn't have formal diplomatic ties. But again, always try to look at what are the underlying interests of the countries and how do the leaders perceive their interests. I think that the Saudis perceive us as a potential ally, as a real, not just a potential, a real ally and a potential formal ally in the future. And I think they understand that the greatest danger to them remains that regime in Tehran.
And I think an ally not just in security dimension, but in other dimensions as well.
Correct. I think, you know, I once said that the Arab boycott against Israel is about as intelligent as Oregon, Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, New Mexico, Arizona, and half of California boycotting Silicon Valley. It makes no sense. And to the extent that you have leaders in the Arab world who want to advance their countries and are thinking the day after oil, what's going to happen? How are we going to maintain our countries, our regimes? And they see, well, you have this great partner in Israel right next door. And I think you have such a leader in Saudi Arabia today. And I think you have it also in the United Emirates, and you have elsewhere in the region that are looking to us as a partner to help them, both on the security side and on the economic side.
Exciting potential. Third and finally on Iran. Iran appears to be intensifying its military cooperation with Russia, providing not only a large number of killer drones to Russia, drones that Vladimir Putin's army appears to be using to attack Ukrainian infrastructure and other civilian targets, but also reportedly helping Russia prepare to manufacture drones of Iranian design. Does Iran's stepped-up collaboration in Russian war crimes, on top of the reports that we've seen of potential Iranian acquisition of advanced Russian weaponry, have special implications for Israel?
Yeah, look, we're always concerned about that partnership and what systems Russia could provide Iran, and it could be potentially dangerous for us. And when we're thinking at that whole theater of Russia and Ukraine, our eyes are very much on it. Now, what a lot of people don't understand when it comes, I should say, on the Ukrainian issue per se, is one of the risks that we have in Israel is that weapon systems that could be provided can fall into the wrong hands, can fall into, let's say, in this case, you provide a weapon system to Ukraine. It sounds great, provide this weapon system. Tomorrow it falls into Russian hands, it ends up in Iranian hands, and then the Iranians reverse engineer that weapon system, and then all of a sudden it becomes a danger for millions of Israeli citizens. So these issues may seem very simple at first, they're not. I mean, Israel's position towards Ukraine has been to be very supportive, but we're always looking at what is the relationship between Russia and Iran, and it's very hard to think that long-term it's only going to be a one-way street. It's not just going to be Iran providing drones to Russia, and the concern will be that the Russians can provide things to Iran, and that they might be increasing their cooperation to the point where it threatens our own security. So believe me, that's something that we look at day after day after day to see where things stand.
I assume so. Thank you, Minister. Let's turn to Abraham Accords again. I have been with AJC colleagues in several Arab capitals in the last few weeks. We've heard a great deal about the potential for advancing the Abraham Accords, producing tangible benefits for the people of the region, and further expanding the circle of peace. And you deserve a great deal of credit for getting us to the point where we are now, and of course the Prime Minister does as well. I've also heard real concerns, we've heard real concerns and frustrations focused on the statements and actions of certain cabinet ministers, which have a negative effect on Arab public opinion and impede progress. How are you wrestling with that?
Well, listen, I think our relations with our peace partners are very good, with the Emirates, with Bahrain, with Morocco. You just had the Speaker of our Knesset who went and spoke in Morocco. You just had the Foreign Minister of Morocco here. I think that most of these countries understand, at least in my discussions with the leaders there, is that our coalition partners joined us, not the other way around. And so it's the Prime Minister that sets the policy. And we have a very different system in Israel. You have a coalition system. It's not like the president goes and he picks everybody in his cabinet. And you cannot control in Israel's system what every single minister says. But what you can control is the policy of your government. And that's firmly in the hands of the Prime Minister. And so I'm confident that in the next few years we're going to be both able to deepen the relationship that we have with these countries, I think, and to advance it very rapidly, much more than I think people thought even 2 or 3 years ago. Remember, we had a year of COVID, or a year and a half of COVID, so you haven't really seen the full power of the relationships that we've started to build. But I think you're going to see us not only deepen the relationships we currently have, but also expand, as you say, the circle of peace, and to include other countries as well. I would be very, very surprised that in the next 2 or 3 years we do not see several more countries join in peace and normalization agreements with Israel.
Let me ask
now, remind you, I just remember,
please,
what seems like, it doesn't even seem impossible today. You know, we take certain things for granted. We're very much a people, you know, what have you done for me lately? I used to say that, look at what happened with Moses, okay? He does 10 plagues, he splits the sea, he goes up for 40 days and 40 nights. He's 8 hours late and gets a golden calf. Okay? Okay. What have you done for me lately? But think about where we were a few years ago. If I would have told you on the stage in 2015, look, I believe there's a breakthrough with several Arab states. Very few people believed it at the time. The Prime Minister, Netanyahu, spoke about it at the United Nations. And a lot of people poo-pooed it, said, no, it's not going to happen, and all roads to peace have to go through Ramallah. It wasn't the case. We are very serious about advancing, deepening the Abraham Accords, but also we are working day after day in order to achieve new breakthroughs. And I think that it's inevitable that it's going to happen, and I'll explain why. Because their fundamental understanding of their interests have changed from what it was 20 years ago, and we started to see the change about 10 years ago, where they understand, look, number one, the danger of Iran. Number two, the danger of Sunni radicalism, not just Shia radicalism. Iran is a Shia radical power, but there was Sunni radicalism. Al-Qaeda was 1.0, ISIS is 2.0, and they know there'll be a 3.0. And they also have a perception that America is disengaging from the region. I think America is trying to make it clear it's not disengaging from the region, but the reality in the Middle East is they see the United States is at the very least reducing its military footprint in the region. So they look at Israel, and as I say jokingly for many years, but it's true, they see this Iranian tiger, they see this ISIS leopard, they see this 800-pound American gorilla that just left the building, and they look around and see a 200-pound gorilla with a kippah on, and they said, maybe we'll work with you. And that's part of their security interests have not changed. And the second thing is what I said about this technology story about Israel. We're not just a power in water and agriculture, in cyber, but also the innovations of the future, autonomous vehicles, artificial intelligence that now the Prime Minister is diving in, and what he did with cyber in Israel 10 years ago, he wants to do with artificial intelligence now to make sure that Israel remains a global leader in this. So for their security and economic interests, they want to move forward with Israel. Now, how you navigate through the diplomatic terrain can be very complicated, and there are things that can facilitate it, and there can things that make it more difficult. But believe me, the fundamental interest of our Arab neighbors is to move into peace with Israel. And I think that's going to hold for a very long time, and it's on us, it's on the government of Israel to work to navigate effectively and to be able to make those peace agreements and normalization agreements with our
AJC will continue
partners.
to be a strong advocate for that, as you know, around the Arab world. Finally, we're talking about the U.S. withdrawal or perception of U.S. retreat from the region, which we hear frequently in Arab capitals. But as you just said, the U.S. has not left the region. We just heard from Dr. Colin Cowell, the Undersecretary of Defense, a few months ago in a conference in Washington, that in fact there were, 35,000 U.S. forces in the Gulf a dozen years ago, and there are still 35,000. We were spiked, of course, during the Iraq War. And they now have autonomous vehicles that supplement the work of the men and women in uniform. There was just an exercise, a week ago, B-1B bombers for the United States flying with Israeli and Jordanian and Saudi fighter jets. You had this massive exercise in January of this year, 6,400 or something U.S. forces, 1,500 Israeli troops. The United States is not going away. Or is it? How concerned are you about the U.S. continued commitment to Israel and continued commitment to the Middle East?
I'm not concerned about, excuse me, I'm not concerned about U.S. continued commitment to Israel. And I think what I said before was about the perception that the United States is disengaged. I mean, that perceptions can change. I'll give you an example. And it's not something that's new to the Biden administration. It actually connects the Obama administration to the Trump administration to the Biden administration, this view that America did not want to send troops to the Middle East. And in a world, I know Europe may be it once was a continent of soft power before the Ukraine war. But in the Middle East is a place of hard power. And when they didn't see the use of military force by the United States, then in this region, they perceive that to America disengaging. So for several years, even with the Trump administration, there was this belief, look, you don't want to get involved. Remember when the Trump administration announced that it was going to withdraw troops from Syria? It didn't even have a lot of troops in Syria, and people got very concerned, and it caused a lot of turbulence within Washington. Your Secretary of Defense at the time resigned. Yep. But it sent a message that the United States was withdrawing. And then there was the downing of the American drone. And I think that was in June of 2019, where there was a downing of American drone and there wasn't a response. And then there was the issue of the attack on the oil facilities. Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah. So there wasn't a response. And the perception was that America was withdrawing. And then all of a sudden, on January 2nd, 2020, Qasem Soleimani, the world's biggest terrorist, was taken out. And believe me, for a period of time, it changed. And that had deterrence throughout the region that the United States was not withdrawing, that they would actually strike. And so this thing can change over time. There's a dynamic that's always in place, and people are looking around, okay, the United States withdrew from Afghanistan. The United States is doing this here. They're doing that there. How do they perceive it? But American power, as it's used in the region, is critical for the security and the stability in this region, and I think the United States understands this. As for the U.S.-Israel relationship, look, I have said since the first time I was privileged to give a speech on Israel's Independence Day in 2014, my first year as a sitting ambassador, I said Israel will be the most important ally of the United States in the 21st century. And I 100% believe that because of security and technology. If you think and you look around the world, and I don't know if it's an upgrade from your head of policy at the AJC, but if I also promote you to become president of the United States.
I want to be in charge of tactics, actually. Ron.
What? In charge of it, it's good. Touché. But you ask an American president, and you say, just look at American interests. If you could only choose one security partner for the next 50 years, just one, And when you think about security, think about a country with a military that can defend itself by itself. Think about a country with a formidable intelligence service. Think about a country that has great cyber capabilities to deal with the new forms of warfare. Think about a country with weapons development also that can produce new and advanced weapons. If you look around the world, America has a lot of great allies. You know, Canada's a great ally of the United States, Australia, France, Germany. The truth is, you're really down to two. You're down to Israel and Great Britain. And Great Britain was the most important ally of the 20th century. But if you take the second part of that equation and you say technology, which country around the world is going to be America's best partner to ensure that the 21st century remains an American century? Because, you know, I'll be diplomatic, you have competitors for that technology around the world. Who's your partner? Think about all your allies. And here, no offense to the Brits who are here, but Israel. It's Israel. Yeah. And so if you look just at American interests, Israel is the most important partner for the United States. And what people don't understand is what I'm telling you now, this is a news story. You know, Israel always mattered to Jews. We always mattered to Jews since the birth of the state 75 years ago. And the attack on Israel for many, many decades was an attack that to support Israel is against American interests. Now you don't hear that attack anymore. Now the attack that you hear against Israel is an attack that we no longer share values, which is also not true. But it's a totally different argument because states actually move together based on their interests long term. And we can have a long conversation about that. I wish we were in a world where it was values that determined relationships between states because Israel would be the world's superpower. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world driven by interests. And the news story about Israel is that Israel matters. We matter to the United States, and we matter to Europe, and we matter to Asia, and we matter to Latin America because of the power of our technology, because of the power of our security, and partnerships with Israel are in the interests of those countries. They're not doing us a favor. That's a news story. And I think once we anchor the relationship between the United States and Israel on those interests, then you know what? We'll have a very good argument about values. I believe we have shared values, we have shared interests, and we also have a great shared sense of destiny with the United States. And I have no doubt whatsoever, and I'm not just saying it, you got me on record, that the best days of the U.S.-Israel relationship are still to come.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. And without question, our values are aligned. And Minister Dermer, thank you so much for spending time with AJC once again. We'll get you that jacket. Thank you.